Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. And we're here today with special guest, Dr. Steve Smith, who's here to share with us his sleeping course, Fight for the Night. So are you struggling to unlock a restful night's sleep and really reclaim your life? Well, today's guest is here to share with us how to do just that. So Dr. Steve Smith is a passionate advocate for finding rest and peace in a world filled with busyness and distraction. A medical doctor with a deep love for both science and faith, Dr. Smith brings a unique perspective to the intersection of spirituality, personal reflection, and the wonders of creation. Through his work on the Live From Rest podcast and app, he guides listeners to the glory of God by exploring timeless truths and practical approaches to living with intention and balance. Drawing on his personal journey, Dr. Smith offers thought-provoking insights into the harmony between faith and the natural world. His reflections, grounded in Scripture, encourage others to marvel at life and the universe as evidence of God's design. Known for his relatable storytelling and thoughtful approach, Dr. Smith inspires listeners to find rest in the glory of God while navigating life's challenges. Whether through his meditations, teachings, or reflections on faith, he equips audiences with tools to embrace peace, clarity, and resilience in their daily lives. So welcome to the show, Dr. Steve Smith.
Thank you very much.
Well, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this. So what even had you inspired to dive into, sleeping issues and sleep disorders?
Well, I'm a doctor, I'm a physician. I've been helping people with all sorts of things for many years, which includes sleep. My main speciality for the last few decades has been addiction work. So sleep problems are a big part of of addiction work, particularly with drug and alcohol issues. But actually, what's really got me interested in sleep is my own personal journey with insomnia. So I've described myself as a certified insomniac, and so it's always been on my mind for many years. But what has excited me is just doing some great research over the last few years and making some changes to my own life, and learning some really valuable keys to a good night's sleep. And so it's been exciting for me personally to discover how to sleep well, and I also love helping other people as well. So that's the journey in a nutshell.
Well, you definitely have my attention because I know a lot of people have so much, it's so difficult to get a good night's sleep. And it could be like we're overworking, too much on our schedule. So you have developed this course, the Fight for the Night Sleep course. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, it's a course that somebody suggested that I do the course almost a year ago. And so it's been quite a labor of love. I've put a lot of work into it, really just putting into it my own learning and my research that I've done over the last a few years, actually. And it's sort of bite-sized modules on various aspects of learning how to sleep. So we look at the science of sleep. It's amazing when you actually understand what actually goes on in our heads and in our bodies when we sleep. It's remarkable how much that can help us to understand the sleep process, and that makes a big difference. But we also talk about sleep hygiene, the sort of the do's and the don'ts, the things to do and things to avoid for a better night's sleep. But the big thing, the really big thing that is a game changer, and has been a massive game changer for me and for the people that I've worked with, is learning to have a sleep mindset. Because it's what really keeps most of people awake is anxiety about not sleeping. There are lots of things. There's maybe it's too much caffeine. It's those things that you've mentioned. We're just too busy, and those are things we absolutely need to look at. But the thing that really changes the situation for us is when we learn to deal with all the stuff that goes on in our heads when we're trying to sleep. And that's what I love to really help people with. So it's quite a big deal. But the great thing is it's not that complicated, actually. It's something that we can learn. One of the things I say, by the way, is that we all once slept like a baby. Well, I mean, I know there are babies that don't sleep very well, but there was once a time when when nobody needed us. Nobody needed to teach us how to sleep. And so what I like to say is I'm teaching people to relearn to sleep like a baby, and not to be thinking and worrying about how to sleep, because that's a big part of the journey.
I think that's so impressive because so many people, like you're saying, they think about the anxiety. "Oh, am I going to sleep? Am I not?" And I was so shocked by the stats. Like 1 in 3 people have sleep issues. I was shocked by
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah. One in three adults, and this is globally across the world, have significant sleep troubles at some time or other. I mean, thankfully for most people, things resolve. But what's really significant is that 10% of the global adult population, and actually where you are in the United States, it's worse, it's 12%. 12% of the American adult population have what we call chronic insomnia, which is defined as having poor sleep for 3 or more days a week for at least 3 months. And that's massive. And some of those people are having trouble sleeping for years. And if you think that if you think of what the world's population is, that's a massive proportion of the global population that are struggling to sleep, and that has massive implications on our health, on our productivity, and all sorts of things. It's a big deal.
So, what do we really need to understand about insomnia?
Well, it's interesting. There's when you go on if you look it up, what strikes me is that when most people do research on sleep on the internet, or they go attend seminars, there are a lot of do's and don'ts. And I think, there's quite a lot. I mean, and this is what's known as sleep hygiene. There's a lot of things that we can do, things we can avoid, make our lives less cluttered, program some rest. It's quite a long list. We could talk about that for a while, but that's what most people focus on. And what can I take? What remedies can I buy? I mean, the sleep aid industry is massive. I think it's like $100 billion a year are spent on sleep aids, things that people take to help them sleep. And most people are missing the point when they do that, because what we really need to do is work on the anxiety that most of us have. Most people anybody listening to this who has chronic insomnia will know what it feels like to be, and I certainly know this feeling, when you're lying awake thinking, oh, I must sleep. I really need to sleep. If I don't sleep, I'm going to have such a terrible day tomorrow. And it's knowing that is what's keeping you awake. It's actually the stress response, the fight or flight response that is keeping us awake. And so it's learning to tame it's our limbic systems, our amygdala, learning to take, just to slow our minds down. So my course is called Fight for the Night, and the full phrase is the fight for the night is fought in the day. And if we're going to, what so many people do is they struggle through the day, and then they leave it to nighttime, till nighttime, when they're going to try and calm themselves down. And I'd say, no, you need to calm yourself down during the day. That's the time. If you learn to relax, if you learn to settle your mind during the day, then you are much better equipped to then deal with those anxious and busy thoughts during the night. And that's what we do in our course. We help you to learn how to do that, how to develop a sleep mindset, we practice imagining being in bed and struggling with your sleep during the day, so that when nighttime comes, and you can be more rational because you practiced it during the day, and that makes a really big difference.
I understand that you also create a like rhythm of rest. What does that look like?
Well, there's quite a lot in the science of sleep, but a lot of people know that we have a circadian rhythm. We actually have a rhythm during the daytime as well, where our bodies are programmed, if you like, for activity, and then we need some downtime. It's not we're not whether you think we're designed or whether we've evolved, however you think we have come to be, we do not work well when we work and don't rest. I mean, many machines need to be switched off for a while, and that includes us. There needs to be times during the day where we just stop, where we don't work through our lunch break, where when we're in the evenings we're not just busy with our phones and our internet and emails and whatever else. We need to program rest into our days and into our weeks on a regular basis. That's one of the sessions we do, is developing a rhythm, leaning into a rhythm of rest, because that in itself is one major thing that helps people.
Now, a lot of people are using sleep trackers. Do those help or do those create more anxiety?
Yeah, that's an interesting subject. That both. So I actually recommend sleep trackers for many people, but I do so with caution. So sleep trackers. So there's a condition that you may have heard of called orthosomnia, and orthosomnia is where you are so obsessed with whether or not you've had a good night's sleep. That in itself keeps you awake. So it compounds, if you like, the sleep anxiety. And but when people are sleep tracking and they're looking at, oh, how many hours sleep did I have? Oh my goodness, it was only 6 hours. It wasn't seven, wasn't eight. Oh dear, that makes things worse. So for some people, sleep tracking is counterproductive. On the other hand, for a lot of people, it can actually be quite helpful, and it has been for me to sometimes realize that some periods of time when you thought you were awake because you were fretting, you were actually probably dreaming about poor sleep. Now, some people find this hard to believe, but when you track your sleep, sometimes you realize that your sleep wasn't actually as bad as you thought it was. So if sleep trackers are used appropriately, they can be very helpful. But I would say, yeah, use your watch, use your phone, but with care, because for some people it just makes things a whole lot worse. They have their place.
So, what are some common misconceptions about sleep that you normally see people have?
Yeah, and that's interesting. I mean, I teach about the myths of sleep that so a lot of people have, and I know that I've been a victim of those myself. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of so-called power napping. I mean, it was really popular in the 1980s. I'm actually in my mid 60s, and so I remember, a long time ago. So I know my concerns about sleep go back decades. There's this sort of myth that you can learn to sleep less, and you can have these power naps where you relax for 10 minutes, and that gives you the benefit, if you like, of 2 hours sleep. And the reality is we can't actually. We function much better if we aim for 7 or 8 hours sleep. I mean, varies, from person to person, say between 7 and 9. And it's a very unhelpful myth that we can learn to sleep less. That's definitely one that we need to ditch. Another myth that we need to ditch is that we can work hard during the week and not sleep well and catch up at the weekend, which is I bet there's some of your listeners are in that category. Get up at crack of dawn, work till last thing at night, and think it's okay, I'll catch up at the weekend. Well, actually, you don't catch up. You Once sleep is lost, you've lost it. And so that's part of the teaching on rest and rhythm. Those are two common myths. I mean, a lot of people think it's okay to take a bit of drink, or I mean, of course, I work in addiction, so I see so many people using drugs, whether they're prescribed or illicit. And a lot of people have this sort of perception that if they can just be unconscious, if they can be sedated for 7 or 8 hours, whatever, then that's okay. Well, it's not. You do not get the benefit of sleep when you're using medication or alcohol. So yeah, sleep myths are quite significant. There's quite a few of them that people are buying into, and they need to be dispelled.
Well, you have such a interesting and diverse background, especially when it comes to addiction and sleep. So, is there a link between the two? Do people who have poor sleep, tend to have addictive behaviors?
I'd say there's a big crossover. Let's put it that way. I mean, there's an enormous number of people who have sleep problems. We've talked about how many, a third of the population have sleep issues at some time or other, and of course, not the far fewer are having serious substance addictions. But there are a lot of people who have developed a substance addiction for whatever reason, and a part of that, a significant part of it, is taking substances, whether it's drugs or alcohol or whatever, to help with their sleep. So a massive crossover for sure.
I'd like to touch on your app too for a moment, Live from Rest. Can you share a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a big part of what I do is in my course is helping people to understand mindfulness and learning to basically not be at the mercy of their thoughts. It's a very powerful tool, learning how to be mindful, how to be aware of what you're thinking about, and then having some control over what you're thinking about. So I have found mindfulness to be really helpful in my own life, and I know it has been massively helpful in many other people's lives. Been very helpful in helping people in addiction as well. So I come from I have a faith background. I would call myself a Christian, and Live from Rest is mindfulness, is faith based mindfulness. So it's not for everybody, but it is for many. So if there's anybody there who wants sort of biblical meditation, using the scriptures to as part of the focus of their their mindfulness, then Live from Rest will hopefully be a help. It's had a lot of very positive feedback.
Well, I downloaded it and I thought it was such just a powerful app to have. And I think people, especially those who are in recovery and, for Christians also, and just anyone that's looking to have a peaceful way of looking at life, I found it was just a great resource.
Oh,
I'd
great! Well, I'm really encouraged. I'm glad you've liked it. That's good. That's that. I mean, that's a great testimony.
Of course, and it's interesting. You think about, Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, that is faith based as well. So
Absolutely.
there's definitely a thread that runs through there that, yeah, I think gives people hope.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, sometimes we're very cautious about bringing faith in. I think it's more of a taboo subject over here in the UK than it is in the United States. Um, but the reality is, I mean, I'm a strong advocate of faith-based recovery because it helps a lot of people. And yeah, there's so much more I could say about that. But also with sleep, and if so the course Fight for the Night is I've made it to be spiritually neutral. So it's for anybody and everybody, whether or not somebody has a faith. But if somebody does have a faith, then I've put meditations on the course that are based on the Psalms, the Psalms of David, which actually are used by people of different faith backgrounds. But of course, the Live from Rest app is also very much people who are wanting biblical meditation, which a lot of people do.
Yeah, it's very helpful for that. Can you share the websites with us one more time?
Of course. Yeah. Well, livefromrest, one word, .com is where our app, where you can get links to the App Store and Google Play for the app. And actually within that is that's and for the sleep course, if you go to Fight for the Night, one word, fightforthenight.com, that will take you to the page for our sleep course, which is within the Live from Rest website, actually.
Well, Dr. Steve Smith, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you, Dr. Steve Smith. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your sleeping course, Fight for the Night. Make sure to visit Dr. Smith's website at livefromrest.com, and there you can find Fight for the Night. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.